Hi, this is Cole Pinter on June 14th. I'm speaking to Trevor Hitchins. He's a targeted individual. I'm trying to record the conversation. And I'm just going to ask him some questions. We're both being hit by directed energy weapons. You there, Trevor?
I'm here, Cole.
Yeah, so tell me what's going on.
It's like I'm on a radio show, right? I'm supposed to say thanks for having me on. Well, what's going on is, I guess what they call the awakening, when you start connecting enough dots that a picture starts to form. Kind of like when you see enough stars, you can make out the constellation. And what I'm saying there is, I think at 27 years old, I think I'm finally understanding that I've been a targeted individual, being hit with multiple layers of torture, directed energy, gaslighting, the whole nine yards. Everything that you've been studying, Cole, for the last couple of years about targeted individuals, it's become obvious to me that that's been going on in my life only now. So whatever was happening to me along the way, and I've got a horror story if you want to know more about it, I'll tell you the parts I know. But what's going on now is that I feel like I'm fading. Like they've gotten me to the point where I need to start thinking about what happens after you transition, because there's no way this can continue. My body is being hit with something so serious that it's becoming hard to walk stairs, communicate. My vision is affected. My strength, it literally feels like my bones are being melted from the inside. I think I've been chipped, although I haven't been able to buy a device yet to scan out those bugs, they call them. So if I had that data, that would be just another level of proof. But yeah, that's what's going on. It's getting pretty bad, Cole, as we've been talking about. And the gaslighting, and the stalking, the targeting, the following, the single headlights on the highway, all of the things. If I'm thinking about something, suddenly a few minutes later, that's showing up. An example of that was, the first one was yesterday. I was pumping gas, and I thought I would be kind of a smart ass, I guess, by just rounding off the pump to $44.44. And I did that. I got in my car, and I noticed there was a car waiting to take my spot at the pump. And her license plate said ANGL 444. That was my dog barking. So, anyway, ask away, Cole. I'm fair game, and I haven't put anything out there on YouTube yet. So, if this comes through, this will be the first time.
Well, I'm just wondering, do they attack your legs a lot? Because I've noticed the last couple cars I've owned, I had a perpetrator confirm this. I had radio frequency devices inside of the dash, and I believe they were also cooking my legs that way while I was driving. I brought an EMF detector out in the car, and I started the engine, and there was a radio frequency device that was emitting frequency all over the seat I was sitting on, and all around my legs and stuff. So I pretty much confirmed it, but I didn't have anybody to show. I should have got a video. It was before I had my YouTube channel, but I believe that's why I just turned 35 today, and I had both of my hips replaced, and when my leg broke, it broke like a piece of glass, man. My bone shattered like glass,
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I'm sorry you're going through that much pain. And to answer your question, the short version is yes, and the long version is, in 1991, I was basically attacked, literally left for dead by 6 cops in the back room of the Ronald Reagan Medical Center at the UCLA campus. I had my head bashed in, and I think there was some severe spinal cord damage. And then there was torture and some other things that happened after that, which I'll get into later if you want to know about it. But yeah, my legs are going numb. I'm feeling the same, the weakness. It feels like the bones have been dislocated, and that could have been done by someone named John Roger Moeller, MD. and I suspect he was part of the paperclip
Yeah.
agenda. And I guess what I really noticed was moving back to this area, and I'm speaking to you from Sun Valley, Idaho, Hitchin, Sun Valley, Idaho. And the last time I lived here, I was 19. I'm now 47. And I know our bodies go through changes, but the last time I lived here, actually I was 17, 18. But I could ski the mountain top to bottom. I could mountain bike. I could run. I could fly fish. I could bird hunt. And then the attacks happened soon thereafter. But moving back 3 years ago, I've been hit what I think was with not only directed energy, but the Verizon cell tower was literally 100 feet away. I just think the attacks have gone off the charts and left me noticing that I don't have the strength and the ability, which is frustrating because this is the absolute most beautiful playground in the world. It's a heaven on earth, and to be living here and feeling like you're also in hell, it's kind of a juxtaposition. It's a bit crazy, but I didn't know what was going on. I hadn't heard from Brian too. I hadn't heard from Donald Marshall. I hadn't heard from Erica Meyer. You and I hadn't spoken. I hadn't heard from Michael Barden or seen his videos. So, like I said, it's very late in the game, but piecing these things together is something that happens, I think, to a TI eventually. And it may be a little bit too late. I've had a good life if it happens, but it's also frustrating to feel like this is being done to you, and that you were probably blacklisted from a very young age. And
Yeah.
I think it's also fair to say that I've had 3 surgeries on my left side. Those were done at the House Ear Clinic, House Ear Institute in Los Angeles. I also had to have my eyes operated on after the attack in '91. And the more we hear about implants and the possible damage that happens to people while in the care or custody of these medical institutions, you start to connect the dots.
Yeah, I really appreciate you giving a testimony on my channel, and I'm gonna put your full name in the title if that's okay, just to let people know. And
sure, it's Hitchin without the S. It's Hitchin. Ironically, it's like being punched in the face. Hitchin.
Yeah, and
yeah.
I'm not ending the interview now. We'll end it as soon as you got out everything you want to say.
Well, sure. I guess there's something I want to mention here as well. Erica Meyer and you have also helped me understand that this is a bloodline initiative. There might be some things that go back, at least in Erica's case, she's saying 7 generations. I don't know how to prove that. I don't know if other people in my family have been affected, but certainly anyone who is a targeted individual within a family, certainly their pain is felt by others. So I guess I'd just like to say that my family has walked this with me for decades, even though I wasn't aware. They certainly knew that something had happened. I also want to say that before this 1991 incident at UCLA Medical Center, which, by the way, there was also torture and abuse at Torrance Memorial Medical Center 2 weeks later by John Moeller. But I hadn't been able to do the research. I hadn't been able to get a hold of my medical records. I was told I couldn't get them. About 12 years ago, I was able to obtain them. They told me that they were at Iron Mountain. Somehow I got them from UCLA and from Torrance Memorial, and I had proof of some of these allegations. The torture, the seclusion, the dislocation, the resulting dislocation of what was prescribed by John Moeller, who, by the way, I knew before this had happened to me. There was a link back to Chadwick School, and he was a parent of 2 classmates of mine, and we could talk through that at another date. If you feel like knowing the details, I'd be happy to share those. But
I want to.
I'm sorry, Cole. The most important thing I wanted to say is that a year before this torture happened, I was walking the death camp in Germany at Auschwitz. And I just thought it was ironic that there I was walking through a facility where torture was allowed, and then it happened to me a year later in my own country. So thanks for thanks for giving me the chance to
Did
speak to you.
you said it wasn't happening before that?
Well, it certainly was, and I just don't think it was published, or if it was published, it was in very obscure articles. I think this began in Canada, as I understand it, through the MK Ultra program at McGill University and Cameron Ewan and Jose Delgado and Jolly West at UCLA. So I think it likely has been going on for decades, and even decades before. Obviously, with the Church Commission in the 70s, when the CIA was called out for this, they were basically brought forward into the light and said, "We're sorry, we stopped the program, it no longer continues." That was in the mid-1970s. It happened to me in 1991. So I think it went way back before the 70s, and I believe it's still going on today.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
That's where you get the the plot line for those movies like Jason Bourne, and certainly with Netflix, Stranger Things. You're talking there about people with abilities that are put into these government programs, and it's sort of under the umbrella of MK Ultra, which I would point your listeners or your viewers to Dr. Colin Ross's work, COLIN ROSS, MD.
Something I want to say before we get too far away from it is I don't know if you know this, but in the MK Ultra program, they used to purposely dislocate people's shoulders and arms, and now also they can do that remotely. So I want to let you. Yeah, I want to let you know that, you know.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and it's a horrible thing to have happened to you, and I think it's even worse if you don't even know that it's happened to you. I would say that by watching other YouTube videos and other survivors' testimonies and hearing, especially one Canadian woman talk about the dislocation of her limbs and the implementation of cameras and her being awake during the surgery and hearing the doctors say that they'll never think to look behind the eyes. That's what this woman was saying that she heard. And you're right. It has been going on, and it's part and parcel, no pun intended, to their methods. I also wanted to say one other thing, I guess, before we get away from this, or before we get to the next question. But if you were to Google the words UCLA, as in the university, UCLA death of a patient, UCLA death of a patient, you'll come up with one journal article, one writing from the LA Weekly, or the Los Angeles Weekly. And that story depicts almost to a T what happened to me. It happened 2 years after I was there. And the young man who's being written about, I believe, had an MBA from, it's either Berkeley, Stanford, or Harvard, one of the top-tier schools, and was basically taken to UCLA by his father, placed on a 3-day hold, a 5150 in California, so danger to self or danger to others. And the entire 3-day stay, the son was calling his father saying, "Dad, come get me, they're trying to kill me here." And on the 4th day, the family was notified that the son was dead. And I'll let anyone who wants to know more do their own research on that. So I'm lucky I made it out, but eventually I believe this program is an assassination program, and the body can only take so much. So eventually things wear out, just like an automobile.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. It's kind of weird that you mentioned that it has, that article that doesn't have your name on it, but it said the patient died.
Oh, no. Just to be clear, it wasn't me in the article, but my story, my experience at UCLA was nearly identical. It happened 2 years before the article, before the gentleman in the article was basically murdered at UCLA. I was there in 91. I believe he was there in 93. But the article is not about me, but the article represents the same experience I had. After I was beaten by the 6 police officers and drugged and tortured, I found my way out of there.
Yeah, but I believe that I had a perp. He kept saying this over and over again on a short cab ride. He was a cab driver, and he kept saying, "I'm dead." No, it says I'm dead on paper, and my mom's dead too. He kept saying that.
Yeah.
So, like,
Well,
maybe he's insinuating that, you know, I'm dead on paper. You know, it says I'm dead, you know?
yes,
Because,
yes, I understand, and that's funny you bring that up because it feels like you're talking to a dead person here.
yeah.
But when I was in Boise, Idaho, the code enforcement specialist, the guy who drives around in the white car with a laptop and gives you a citation for having, you know, too much stuff in your yard or hedges that need to be clipped or whatever. The code enforcement person, when we were having our little dance together, he said, "It's funny, Trevor. Your name doesn't come up in the computer. It turns to a flat white screen." He said, "In 23 years of doing this job, it's only happened to one other person." So I think they're certainly watching my every move, and I don't know how I'm registered. And funny, you know, now you mentioned this, that happened 10 years ago, but I went to renew my DMV, my registration yesterday, and the guy said almost the same exact thing to me. He said, "That's funny, your driver's license doesn't come up in the system." And I said, "Does that mean if I was pulled over, it would show that my driver's license was invalid?" He said, No, that's still fine, but in the system, I guess the secondary system, it wasn't coming up. So I don't know, Cole. Make of it what you will, but
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've had a lot of strange experiences myself, you know, and I do experience 24/7 surveillance, you know, and you know, I had the same dream manipulation that Michael Barden experiences. They've done that to me before. You know, sometimes I have to question my dreams that might not be them, you know, now because I doubt myself, you know.
yeah. Yeah, do you know that I'm sure I was put on everyone's watch list from a cultural exchange that occurred in my senior year of high school in 1988, 89. I was one of 4 other students that a small group of us were able to go over to the Soviet Union, which was the Soviet Union back then. And we toured Moscow, Kiev, St. Petersburg, Leningrad. And I worked through the State Department to get an export license to take over 2 computers to place in their schools. Now, whether or not the computers made it to the schools or not, I didn't have any control over that. But certainly, my life has been filled with extraordinary events, and perhaps I was put on somebody's watch list after that. I don't know. But I think I was one of the first people to send an email between a Russian and American school before we even had a formal internet.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. Being put on a watch list shouldn't mean that you're being tortured and abused and exploited and trafficked. You know what I mean?
Yes, thank you for saying that. And after hearing, and I have to give credit to Erica Myers and to you and Michael Barden, that the linkage there to the word human trafficking or the phrase human trafficking, I think that plays prominent in my story. And having been born and raised in Manhattan Beach, California, I guess I should have made some connections a long time ago, even though I didn't go to this preschool, McMartin Preschool. That was one of the most prominent cases in the child trafficking history of this country, and certainly was one of the first, either the number 1 or the number 2 most expensive court case in U.S. history. And that was from a small beach town of 30,000. And when Michael Barden talks about some of his earlier experiences in life and the connections that he's been able to make, and even some things you've mentioned, Cole, and certainly Eric has talked about being trafficked, yeah, I think this is a game, and I think people are making fortunes, small fortunes, maybe large fortunes off of TIs. I've even heard that we'll bet against or bet on like horses or dog races, and perhaps even insurance policies are taken out so that, you know, when a TI does go down, finally go down, some people lose and some people win, just like a casino.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, you know, and yeah, it's just you know, the past couple of days I've been kind of sick still. I mentioned that in my other videos, and you know, I apologize to anybody who's waiting for my next video. I've not felt good enough. Hopefully, Trevor Hitchin's testimony and our conversation and this interview, or whatever you want to call it, you know, hopefully this helps him out a little bit, you know.
I think getting the truth helps any TI. You know, you can't argue with the truth. And it doesn't mean that necessarily a TI knows the whole truth, but I think any TI who's speaking in the first person about their own experiences, I think they're knocking on a truth door.
Yeah.
And there's so much more to this, and we'll just never know. But if you have any other questions, Cole, fire away. If not, thanks for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I just wanted to ask you, have you ever seen any drones? I saw some drones headed towards my house, and I've also had multiple people tell me at least some of this comes from drones. I was wondering, your thoughts on that and what you have to say about that, because I've definitely seen drones around my house.
Yeah, I'll say this. I'll say I believe you, and I'll say I believe it is happening. And I think there's a somewhat famous clip of, I guess, was it Robert Mueller, or I think it was him, being asked in a congressional hearing environment, do we use drones in the United States on our own citizens? And the answer was yes. Do I think it's happening to me? Yes. Have I seen drones in my field of vision attacking me? No. Do I hear them? No. I'm pretty much deaf in my left ear. My vision is getting a little wonky. I've got bifocals prescribed, so I thought I'd be the first person to notice if they even were out there. But I would say with 100% certainty that they are being used, combined with what Brian too has spoken of, the remote neural monitoring and satellite distribution of signals through wireless LAN or WAN or Wi-Fi networks. I think it's all connected.
Yeah, that's all happening. That's all happening, but I do want to let TIs know who's listening. They also have portable versions of these weapons, as well as, ones inside of cars. They could be in a book bag. Pretty much all of it's true. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, and I don't think we'll ever know the extent to how these directed energy weapons are used against us. I will say this, if you kind of look at a TI's living quarters or their living experiences, how many times they've had to move, and I went from owning 5 homes for nearly 10 years to basically living without shelter, without a roof. I mean, I had basically been asset stripped of everything, and in one of these locations where I had to live, I moved 10 times in 5 years. But in one of these locations, I had an F-35 or an F-18 fly over, literally hundreds of feet above the place I was staying at, very remote. And I think at that point I was being hit.
Yeah.
I can't prove it. I shouldn't even say that because it makes it sound like the U.S. government is flying planes over people and hitting them with weapons. But I'll just say this: I haven't felt worse since.
Yeah, I mean, I've been covertly stripped of having a place to stay. I've been covertly stripped of my jobs, my car, everything. I've lost everything. I'm lucky that I have a place that has a little bit of shelter and I have a phone even.
Yes, I do know. I know exactly what you mean. And the secondary shockwave that comes through a TI's life when they start making these connections is that, oh my goodness, oh my God, this has been going on for how long? And they start replaying scenes of their life and the people that have been put in their life. Maybe they thought those relationships were real. Maybe they thought everything was just normal, just like everybody else was experiencing. When actually it was a lot more like the Truman Show, where you're surrounded by actors and actresses.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And also, I think we definitely have PTSD from this.
Of course, yes, and I went from basically a $500,000 education with a master's degree from Pepperdine University to being on Social Security disability, and that's my primary complaint and has been. It's that it's what happens afterwards. It's the post-traumatic or complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which when you start talking about these things like we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes, it just makes you sound a little bit out there. But if it's happening to you, you know that some of what I've said, some of what Cole has said, will ring true. And as someone said on the Vice YouTube video, I believe it was, the HBO special, I'm sorry, the HBO or the Vice special on targeted individuals. Somebody said, we're not having a group
hallucination. Yeah, I remember it. I remember it, and it was Vice. We wouldn't be lucky enough to have this on HBO, you know.
Yeah, thank you, Cole, because I think I was just having a little bit of a mind wipe on that word. But he said, we're not having a group hallucination here. When you're in a room with 50 or 100 TIs and they're all nodding their head at the exact same thing, you know, we're never supposed to connect. We're never supposed to be able to figure this out. And when I learned about Project Paperclip, and I learned that basically the story of World War II was not really the historical fact version of what happened to some of this technology after the war, I started getting a little bit more curious.
Yeah, and you know, I want to start helping TIs through maybe giving them somebody to talk to. You know, all TIs need to talk to each other. So, do you want to put your number out there? I'm going to put my number out there in this video.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Like I say, I mean, I've been feeling pretty horrible, like close to heaven's gate for the last couple of years. But if anybody out there would like to reach out, certainly 208-397-8270. That's in the U.S. Mountain Time Zone, 208-397-8270, or Trevor.Hitchin@gmail.com. That's Trevor.Hit, like Tom, CHIN, like Nebraska, @gmail.
Okay, and I'm going to put my number out there again. It's 908-397-2514. That's the number for Cole. So that's me. And you know what? I'm going to end this interview, this testimony. And thank you for being on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, appreciate it, Cole. Happy birthday.
All right, thank you.